Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Cassie Riva. I'm the Assistant Events Manager at an Unlikely Story bookstore in Plainville, Massachusetts. Before we start, I just wanted to let you know that when you order Henry Winkler and Lin Oliver's new book, Alien Superstar, Hollywood versus the Galaxy, from an Unlikely Story, you're going to receive an autographed bookplate from Henry and Lin while supplies last. With that said, we hosted Henry Winkler and Lin Oliver in person at the store back in 2019, and needless to say, they wowed a sold-out crowd, 300 people, with their presentation and their kindness, and made it one of our most memorable events to date. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce them to our virtual stage today. Henry Winkler is an Emmy Award-winning actor, writer, director, and producer who has created some of the most iconic TV roles, including the character Arthur the Fonz Fonzarelli on Happy Days, who is the epitome of coolness, and Gene Cusino on HBO's Barry, for which he won the Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. He is a star on Hollywood Boulevard, was presented with the Order of the British Empire by the Queen of England, and the jacket he wore as the Fonz hangs in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Lin Oliver is a children's book writer and producer for both TV and film. She is currently the co-founder and executive director of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, which has over 22,000 members. Lin worked at Universal Studios for 11 years, became a vice president of the company, and developed many television shows, including Harry and the Hendersons, where she worked with the 10-foot-tall Bigfoot. Lin now runs her own production company called Lin Oliver Productions and has written and produced television shows such as Corduroy and Wayside School, and movies like Finding Buck McHenry and The Trumpet of the Swan. In 2002, Henry and Lin published their first book in the Hank Zipzer World's Best Underachiever series, which was based on Henry's early struggles with dyslexia and is made with a unique font to assist kids with reading struggles. Now there are 18 Hank books that have sold over 4 million copies, and a series for younger kids called Here's Hank. Henry and Lin's middle grade series, Alien Superstar, is out of this world, and today they're going to talk about the third book in the series, Hollywood versus the Galaxy, another hilarious, action-packed intergalactic adventure. Interviewing Henry and Lin is none other than the award-winning author of the mega hit Diary of a Wimpy Kid series and owner of an Unlikely Story bookstore and cafe, Jeff Kinney. Henry, Lin, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh my gosh. When we got the email saying we're hosting an event with you, we were all freaking out. Amazing. Thank you for being here.
A pleasure.
Happy to be here. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Lynn. It's great to see you. Great to see you, Henry.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for being such great friends to the store and to me. Cassie, great introduction. You're absolutely right. We constantly rank our events and say which was the best, and yours always comes up as number one. And that is saying something because we've been open for 6 years, but that night was electric. Thanks for being so nice to us and so nice to your fans.
It was memorable. It was really memorable for us, too. It was everything congealed into a perfect evening.
Yeah.
You know, that is true because no matter what you do, wherever you go, there's always a different personality of the room itself. And when we came to your wonderful, magical store, and we got to tour your office and meet all those incredible people, the energy was just, we were high for days after it.
That's so cool to hear. And my wife, half of the energy was coming from my wife, who had your picture, Henry, on her, wall in her middle school years. So, yes, I'm really excited to be talking about your terrific series, Alien Superstar. In fact, I liked it so much that I blurbed it and I said, action, suspense, and big laughs. And I meant it. This is the third book in the series. For anyone who hasn't read about Buddy Cheeseburger, can you tell us a little bit about him? Lynn.
So Buddy is an alien. He comes from a red dwarf planet somewhere way out in the galaxy. The planet is overtaken by an autocratic ruler, and Buddy has to escape on his 13th birthday, or he will have his sensory enhancer, which is an appendage that is used to sort of enhance all your senses. He will have that disabled. So he escapes in a spaceship designed by his grandmother, who is head of the Starfleet, and comes to Earth. He comes to the only address that he knows on Earth, which is Universal City Studios, because he and his grandmother watch movies. And after a very exciting travel, he lands plop in the middle of the back lot of Universal Studios, where the tour is taking place. And when he disembarks, everyone sees an alien with 6 eyes and cobalt skin and suction cup for toes getting out, and they think, no big deal. He's a stroller on the back lot. So that begins the adventures of Buddy Cheeseburger, on Earth. He becomes a star of his own sitcom, and he has multiple adventures across the 3 books.
Awesome. And now, Henry, Hank Zipser was semi-autobiographical about a human boy, of course. So what made you decide to take this giant leap and leap into science fiction?
Well, since we write for children, Lynn and I meet in her office on Wilshire Boulevard, and we talk about, so what would be a great story? And we found that when you come up with a great story, I'm just going to unplug the phone because I forgot to do that. When you come up with a great story, your mind becomes like a volcano of thoughts. Mm-hmm. And when the story is not so good, when it's a kind of a not so great story, the ideas just kind of fall on the floor.
Right.
So we said, so what do children like? What do we know about our children, our grandchildren, the children we've met in classrooms? They always talk to us about Hollywood, about the red carpet, about a limousine, about what it is like to be on a set. And they also have great imaginations about outer space. So we put the 2 together and made a character that is very much like a character you would meet on Earth, although he's an alien. And that character is trying to figure out, who am I in the middle of all these other people?
That's great. That's a great setup. It's a great description. One of my favorite things about your books is your descriptions, especially those moments when Buddy talks about what life was like on his home planet, or maybe alien anatomy. And there was a passage that I really enjoyed. This is a kind of a typical thing where Buddy tells you what it's like for him on his home planet. Okay, so I'm going to read this. My human hair blows all over my face and tickles my nose, which makes me sneeze and is really a lot of fun. On my planet, there is no such thing as a nose sneeze. During a red dust storm, we all wear snorks, which are nostril shields. They protect our noses and force us to sneeze through our ears. That gets messy, and trust me, you don't want to know the details. Let's just say it involves green particles spewing out your ears. I'm not even going to mention the yellow ones. That's great. I really imagine you work as a team, which is really cool. I imagine you laughing a lot. Is that what it's like when you write a sequence like that?
Yes, I actually remember writing that sequence, and we were holding our sides with peals of laughter. And I think, as a matter of fact, we did describe the yellow particles and then decided maybe that was a bridge too far.
and the alien standing to the left of Buddy, who went from cobalt blue to a kind of a puce color.
That's great. So I've always been curious. I wouldn't work well with a partner, I don't think. But you two seem to work so well together. I think you have, is it 36 books at this point?
Yes, we've just written our 37th.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, and what's it like? Are you always paddling in the same direction? Do you have disagreements? If you have a disagreement, who breaks the tie? I'd like to know what the dynamics of that situation are.
Henry, you go first.
Do you know what? Most of the time, we're in the same canoe. Mm-hmm. And we're just going down the river, and it's great. And there are times when we have a different sense of why what must happen happens. And there are times, literally, when Lynn says, "You know what? I really am feeling I need this to happen."
Yeah.
There are times when I say, "Lynn, the way it sounds in my ear, the alliteration, I really need it to be that sentence."
Yeah.
And that's how we solve it. We listen to each other, and that is true since 2002.
And that's really cool to hear. I think what's really interesting for me is I just got into screenwriting. And as I've written my narratives across these many years, I've never cared really almost at all about the way that the characters feel or the way that the reader feels. I'm always just thinking about the laugh. And just recently I got into screenwriting. I'm doing like a Disney Plus production right now. And it's so interesting to be in these meetings. Thank you. It's so interesting to be in meetings with people who keep talking about the way that the audience is going to feel, or the way especially that the characters feel. What was it like for you to make that decision? Did you start off with this idea that your stories, even though they're funny and they're sci-fi, that they were going to have this emotional, gooey center that was sort of cinematic?
No, you know what? I'll just start the answer. That has always been part of our process. How you feel, how the character feels, the underpinning of our comedy has always been very important to us.
Yeah.
And I think you underestimate yourself, Jeff, because I think we all love Greg and we love him. Yes, he's funny, and so is Rowley. They're funny kids, but we feel for them. The reason kids love them is because everybody is a wimpy kid underneath, right? You know,
Right.
we all have our wimpy alter ego, no matter how. So I think that's something that Henry and I have understood, and that you understand too. You can be going for the joke, but if it's just a series of jokes, then it becomes sort of wisecracky and not what we wanted with this book and with our Hank Zipser books was for our characters to become part of the culture, to become part of the zeitgeist, for kids to love them like they would love a friend. And that happens in television. You know, that when you think of the series that you love, you want to be in the room with those people. And that happens with Wimpy Kid, it happens with Riley Jefferson, and hopefully it happens with our book too. They're a little gooey in the middle, but they're funny on the outside.
Yeah.
So
you know what is interesting about what Lynn is saying is that you don't consider it, but it is part of your soul. And so the jokes come out of your emotionality, whether you think about it or not. So your characters have empathy and great senses of humor.
Well, thank you, and that's great advice. So what I really love about Buddy is that he's really good. There's a passage in this book about Buddy talking about how aliens are quite friendly, and that he's friendly. He's a good guy. And in this story, he's having difficulty with a friend of his who's becoming not so friendly. But Buddy, it's interesting because I met you at an interesting time. You had just signed a contract for this book, but you didn't know what Buddy looked like yet. And I remember you were going down to New York and you were going to meet with some artists, I think. And you said, we don't know what Buddy looks like, but Henry, you said, I'll know it when I see it. How did you know when you saw Buddy that the artist got it right?
You know what? That it is the same way that I act. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know when it comes out and it feels right. You know, since I was 14, I have been convinced that aliens are going to land in my vicinity and they're going to be friendly.
Right.
I know it in my soul. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm 76, so it better happen pretty quick. But it has always been. But when we went down to New York, I will reveal that I was a little testy because when I saw some of the artwork, the emotional actor in me kind of came out, and I knew this wasn't it.
Okay.
And eventually we got to a wonderful place, but
Yeah.
I was pretty verbal.
Jeff, you have the advantage over us in that you can also draw. We can only talk. And talking to an artist to describe a visual image is like trying to describe dancing to someone. There isn't sufficient vocabulary for it.
Yeah.
Every time we give directions, they get misinterpreted because it's just words, you know.
I understand. Well, I think
I will say that since we started, I have perfected a box. I can make a box.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think one of the things that's really fun about this book is that we have all these moments where we have these drawings, and they're little anchors to tell the reader what's going on. Of course, that's what a drawing should do. But I found myself doing something that I hadn't done in a while. If I saw a page like this, I would all of a sudden see a dark shadow through the page, and I'd get kind of excited because I knew that meant that a picture was coming on the next page. And not only when I was a kid, but now to this day, pictures in a book were these little islands for me to swim to. I have attention deficit disorder, and I have trouble, paying attention to this. And those little anchors really help kind of pull me through a book, even your book. I think that they're great. And I was wondering, what was it like for you as kids to be readers? Did you just fly through the pages? Did you struggle? Where were you as kids who are, say, 11 or 12 years old?
Well, Henry and I had very different experiences. I was sort of born a reader, but what I remember several things. One is the books that I read. My parents always made me read the classics, and they had a frontispiece, I think they called it. It was always a beautiful, like when you read Robinson Crusoe or A Tale of Two Cities, there was a beautiful full color, usually Wyeth. And I would go back to those. Every time I would pick up a book to read, I would spend some time in that beautiful illustration. It meant so much. And the other thing I always looked for when I went to the library to check out books was a lot of dialogue, which was an island for me, because dialogue makes a lot of white on the page. So when you see a page that's all gray with type and you're 11, it's sort of like, oh, that's a lot. Those are a lot of words to read. Yeah. But if you see an illustration or if you see a lot of dialogue, it opens up the page and it breathes, and you think, oh, I can do that. Henry had a different experience with reading.
I had an assignment and to go and get a library card. I went to the library and I looked and I took books off the shelf and I wanted to read them. I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be unbelievable. And I got Call of the Wild by Jack London.
Yeah.
And I had it on my bedstand, and I never opened it. I was always afraid that I couldn't read it. I knew I couldn't read it. And then when it was time, I took it back to the library, took another book, and the same experience, wanting so badly, thinking, oh, this has got to be a great adventure. Look at the cover of the dog howling. And that's as far as I got.
Well, something that's interesting in this book is that you actually have screenplay pages. And I don't know if I can find them quickly, but yes, this will show you, this is what a screenplay looks like. So that's a different kind of writing. And I can see, Lynn, why that appeals to you. I think of screenplay writing as writing at the speed of thought. I've had some interesting experiences recently because I've gotten to, we're doing animation for the first time. So I get to write words on the page, and then the next day, some famous actor is in a studio in Vancouver reading them out loud. It's really exciting to me. Henry, I'm very curious, what's it like for you to be, because you do a lot of voice work, is it difficult to work in that way where you're not sitting in a room with other people, where you're sort of just by yourself with with a headset on and a microphone?
Do you know what? In the beginning, it was. In the beginning, I needed to use my entire body as I do as an actor.
Yeah.
And you have to focus all of that into your mouth and your throat and your imagination. And slowly, as I relaxed into it, I now do this wonderful character on Monsters at Work called Fritz.
Yeah.
And when you relax into it, all of a sudden, he just comes to you.
Huh.
And all of a sudden, you can't say the words anymore. You've got to sing about stand in your toes. And that's how it grows.
So you write a lot about, one of the really great things about these books is that we get a peek, this aspirational peek into life on a film set. And I know that, Henry, you've spent a lot of time on television and film sets. Lynn, have you as well? Have you spent a lot of time in trailers and in that world?
Yes, well, less so in trailers because those are for the actors, but as the executive producer and chief writer, I've written probably 300 or 400 episodes of television and been a showrunner on 4 or 5 series. So you spend a lot of time on the set and a lot of time with the actors rewriting the lines, watching the rehearsals, rewriting. A lot of Chinese food at 4 a.m. That's an essential part of the experience. When my kids were growing up, I think I was doing Harry and the Hendersons. We produced 72 episodes, and they had their own little classroom on the set so that they would come and go to school with the kid actors on the show. We have Buddy doing that. So I've spent a lot of time. As a matter of fact, Harry and the Hendersons was shot on stage 42 at Universal, and Buddy Burger's show in Alien Superstar is shot on stage 42 at Universal. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious, Lynn, do you still get a kick out of writing some dialogue and then having those words come out of an actor's mouth?
Yeah. Yes. It's thrilling. It's a completely thrilling thing. The other thing, when you were talking about writing animation, so I've produced a lot of animation too. So what happens is based on a book. So you write the scene, and then not only does it go to an actor, it goes to a storyboard artist,
right?
Which to me is magical. You actually are kind of a storyboard artist yourself when you do your cartoon panels. But for me, the first step is having someone take words and turn them into a series of images, which is magical to me.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the actor.
Right.
And then it goes to the best part is when the orchestra shows up, when there's music behind it, then you just think, oh, this is as good as it gets, right?
Yeah. I think a lot about, I got to have my own trailer, which was pretty cool on the set. And they tend to learn like what you like to eat and, this kind of a thing. So readers of your series know that Buddy needs avocados to survive. So I ask each of you, is there one food that you really can't live without, just like Buddy can't live without avocados? We have a special guest.
A cheeseburger. A cheeseburger in Manhattan.
Yeah.
In the lobby of the hotel, the Parker Meridian is called the burger joint.
Okay.
And here in LA, it's called Win Dough. You order it Win and you pay a dough, and the cheeseburger is beyond.
Is that place in the Parker Meridian? Is it like this little sliver of a place? Okay, I've been there. Yeah.
Oh my God, it never fails. We will get out of a play.
Yeah.
When we were able to go to a play, we're just starting now. They're coming back.
Yeah.
We would walk as fast as we could up 8th Avenue, down 57th Street, and get the last burger they were serving. And fall asleep on a full stomach of cheeseburger.
That is fantastic. How about you, Lynn? Is there?
Yes. See, I'm a California native, so the idea of like guacamole and chips or
Yeah.
salsa and chips or anything on a chip
Yeah.
is to me, I can't imagine anything better. If I never had another meal and I only had chips and guacamole for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Yeah.
that would be just fine with me.
Yeah. And so one of the things that Buddy, and Buddy's Planet, they only have these bland nutritional wafers. So that gives you a great chance as writers to have Buddy discovering and enjoying the snack foods of Earth. So if I were to open your snack cabinets right now, what would I find as your go-to snacks?
Well, you mean for personal snack?
Sure. Yes.
Grilled cheese
Yeah.
on a Thomas's English muffin
Okay.
with a slice of heirloom tomato.
Oh, that's sophisticated. That's very, I thought you were going to say Cheez-Its or something like that, but.
Yeah. Now, Buddy cannot have strawberries.
I see.
He's allergic to strawberries. He breaks out.
I see. How about you, Lynn? What's
And
in
me, very clearly, it's a Diet Peach Snapple
Yeah.
and a large bag of Cheetos,
Yeah.
the kind that make your hands orange for like a week and a half
Right.
after you eat them. And we know that you have confessed in a previous conversation we had the double stuffed Oreos.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you still-
I wrote a whole book fueled only on double stuffed Oreos, Cool Ranch Doritos, and it must have been Skittles or Mike and Ike's, but it was really, really disgusting. No offense to those companies, but those three things don't mix. So
Yeah.
we don't have much time here. I was just curious, just dialing it back. You always write books for middle schoolers. Why are middle grade readers your target audience? What's special about those readers?
For me, I have just grown out of that age. I look mature. Inside is a whole other universe.
Yeah.
For me, I remember what it was like to want so much to succeed at that time. And no matter what I tried, sharpening my pencils, having everything organized, I was in another stratosphere.
Yeah.
How about you, Lynn? What makes it so appealing to write to?
Oh, I have strong feelings about that. First of all, I think when I'm considering middle school sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
That's when you start to come out of the influence of your parents, the daily influence of your parents, and turn to your peer group and turn to yourself. So I think that's a really crucial time to catch kids, and help them form a concept of themselves as strong and smart and funny and independent and capable of independent thought. So I really love that age. And they're still kind of weird. They're still funny and cute and they're not like, by the time you get to teenage, people get more self-absorbed and that's sort of the definition of teenage. But in that middle grade, you're half kid and then you're trying to grow up and trying to figure out who you are relative to your peer group. And I think that's just great. Also, I think that what the kind of books that we both write, that you write and we write, which are intended to be fun and inspirational and the kind of book that you tuck in your backpack and you read on your own, not as a class assignment. I think if you can get kids at that age, they become readers for life. They learn that it's fun and that you don't have to read a chapter a night and then answer questions at the back of the chapter.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's our goal, right? Is to make sure that kids we read for pleasure as adults. And so we want kids to read for pleasure as well, not just because an adult told them to.
I had an assignment of Tale of Two Cities. And it was so daunting. It was so scary. It was so that all I did was pour water over the outside pages. They crinkled up when they dried. And it looked like, wow, he is just beating that book into submission. And I read the first line. That was it.
Yeah. I recently, my sons both had to read that in their freshman year. And I would read a few pages and I would say to my son, like, do you have any idea what's going on? You know, so I think we resorted to the water dripping as well to impress the teacher. It's tough stuff. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. I'm so happy for you and for all your success. I can't wait to see what you do next. And I love this book, and I'm so sure that our readers will as well.
Thank you. What a great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for having us, and we love your books too.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you so
really.
much. All right, we will see you down the road, hopefully in person.
In person.
Hi, Cassie.
Happy nice.
Oh gosh,
Bye.
thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Thank you all so
This
so
was
much.
wonderful.
Henry Lin, this was
Thank you,
amazing.
Cassie. It was great to be with you. Great to be with you all.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Remember, when you go to anunlikelystory.com, you can get an autographed book plate from Henry and Lin while supplies last. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.